What's up, gang? Welcome to The Greatness Machine. I'm your host, Darius. I'm so pumped to have you here with me. Now listen, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. Number one, people who are living their passions. And number two, those who are creating greatness in the world and doing both of these things despite the odds against them. Each episode, we're going to feature interviews with game changers, business leaders, telling us their origin stories, what made them tick, what got them to where they are now. Why? So it can help you step into your greatness within your life, your business, and your career. Occasionally, you might hear a few solo episodes from myself, moi, as I leverage my 20 years of entrepreneurship as a CEO and founder to help you grow and level up in your journey to scale your life and your business. So come be a fly on the wall, enjoy the conversation, and I'm stoked to have you here with me. Guys, welcome to today's episode of The Greatest Machine. I'm your host, Darius. And boy, do we have a special guest. My man, Dave Lamont, is in the house. What's up, Dave?
Things are excellent. Good to chat with you.
Yeah, great to have you here. So before we get started, do you mind if I do a little bit of housekeeping and then we'll get going on the show here?
Yeah, please do.
So for listeners who are new to the show, The Greatness Machine, we're about two things. People are living their passions and those creating greatness in the world and doing so despite the odds. And my man, Dave, here is neither sort of passion nor greatness. So, my team reached out to Dave. He's got a great book, super successful entrepreneur. Asked him to come on the show to talk about his how he came up in the world of business, as well as his book Crank It. So we're going to be talking a lot about that today. But I'll give your formal bio if you don't mind, Dave, and then we'll get started on the show. Does that work for you?
Sounds excellent. Perfect.
All right, let's do it. So, as I mentioned before, Dave is a serial entrepreneur. He's CEO of the Renfrew Business Group, president of Renfrew Chrysler, Nissan, Lloydminster, and Royalty RV. So he's in the auto space as an entrepreneur and business owner. He wrote his book Crank It in July of 2023, and it's a playbook for succeeding in business and life. So super successful entrepreneur, author. It's a Wall Street Journal bestseller. I'm super excited for the audience to learn from you and to learn all about the work you've been doing as well as your book. So, but I'd love if you don't mind, Dave, if we started with your origin story. Here at The Greatest Machine, we love origin stories. Would love it if you could tell us a little bit about how'd you get to where you got to in life.
Well, I started, before I got into the automotive world, I went to University of Montana and received a business degree, which opened up a lot of doors for me, which in Calgary, Alberta, where I'm originally from, I came back to Canada and started with Chrysler Corporation for head office and worked as a district manager and promoted up through the ranks with Chrysler Corporation over 6.5 years, and then got into the retail side of automotive as a sales manager, general sales manager, general manager, and then on to an owner.
So and did you, having got into the automotive world, did you come up did you grow up in a family where you all were your parents entrepreneurs? Were they in the auto business, car business? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, growing up, my family was not in the automotive business. My father was an entrepreneur and a business owner, a very successful business owner. My brother now owns that business. So we're a very business oriented family. I remember at a young age sitting at the kitchen table over dinner and chatting about business, and a lot of business associates of my father would be in town on business. So I would be a young, 10 or 11, 12-year-old chatting business and just being a sponge, learning, about the business world. And growing up as well, my father absolutely loved cars. So with that, my brother and I automatically became car lovers. We were at so many car auctions, car shows, and I just had a passion at a young age reading car magazines. After car magazines, I knew stats about every car. And so it worked out beautifully that my passion in automotive brought me into the automotive business, and I started at 23 with the corporation. But it was a very business family growing up that happened to love cars as a passion.
That's cool. And so with, when you were growing up, did you have a favorite car where you're like, oh, that's my dream car?
I did. I don't own a Chevy dealership, but when I was a young guy, I loved the 1967 Corvette Tri-Power. I absolutely loved Corvettes. They're a fun car, just a great car, great collector's car today.
And so, 67 Corvette's a beautiful car. And did you, now having owned, been in the auto world for many years and did you say you own a Chrysler? You don't own a Chevy. So have you ever? Would you actually own a Corvette now that you obviously have the ability to do so?
Yeah, because I own a Chrysler, Dodge, Ram truck dealership and a Nissan. But I can't believe I'm saying this, but yes, I would own a Corvette in my stable. I was
gonna say, I'm like, man, is that like sacrilegious? You're like,
yeah.
you're like the Chrysler Dodge guys driving a Corvette. That's like against the law of car dealership owners. That's funny.
If I drove a brand new Corvette, that certainly would be against the law. But a collector Corvette, I'd be all right.
I do. The new Corvettes are kind of cool. They look kind of like Ferraris a little bit, like which I don't know. Did you see that?
Yeah, they built a beautiful car. I have to say the new Corvettes are a very nice looking car.
It's interesting. Like every time I see them, I'm like, man, that's a really pretty car. And then, but I like Ferraris a lot too. And I'm like, but I feel like they're not like, it's like, it's a really awesome car, but I kind of feel like they're copying Ferrari a little bit. So I'm like, well, I mean, do you have an opinion about this?
I believe they are kind of copying a Ferrari, but it's working for them. Like it's worked because they certainly have eyeball. They're a nice looking car, and I think they're selling a lot of them with the change on it. I think they're getting even a different buyer now. So
yeah, no, I'm telling you, I was tempted to buy it, man. I was like, it's like $100,000 Ferrari. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like but it's got American horsepower. So anyway, yeah. I was kind of tempted. So man, coming up, it sounds like you came up through the corporate world, and then you ended up, buying your own. Tell us a little bit about that, because buying, starting an auto dealership is, it's a capital intensive moment, right? It's a lot of money. You got to buy all these cars, right? Most people I know, and I know a fair amount of people that have either their families or they themselves have been in the auto game. A lot of them, they inherited the dealerships because they're so expensive to build now. So I'd love to kind of hear your story on that.
Darius, it's correct. A lot of people in the automotive say, it's a second or third generation dealership. But, with my corporate background, was a good, I always wanted to own a car dealership. So it was a good starting block, learning the corporate side of the business. And then I left to go into retail and worked at a few different dealerships. And I worked at Renfrew Chrysler, obviously before I owned it, and worked here for a couple of years, worked at a couple of other dealerships. And the owner at the time called me up in 2006, said, Davey, I'd love you to come back to Renfrew Chrysler. I said, well, Mikey, I'm happy in Edmonton. Things are good. And he says, well, let's meet together next time you're in Calgary. I said, perfect. I was back for Calgary Stampede, a big party in Calgary. And we met at a pub and started chatting. He said, Dave, I'd love to sell you Renfrew Chrysler, which certainly grabbed my attention very quickly. So we worked out a deal, and I would be the general manager for a couple of years and then buy the dealership in 2008. And he set it up as a VTB, a vendor take back. So I gave him some cash down and then paid him out of profits over 5.5 years. And 100%, I owned the dealership 100%. So it was a very nice structure, because to buy a dealership, using a bank, it's not easy. So doing the vendor take back, was absolutely a gift from Mike Tarp, who was the owner at the time. And I think I did him very well for the 2 years before I owned it. It was a very, very profitable store. So that's how I got into it and owned Renfrew Chrysler, and then a Nissan dealership and an RV dealership. I just currently bought another Dodge dealership as well in Calgary. So it's just keeps rolling. Once you get the first one, you just keep rolling along. So I just bought Crowfoot Dodge in Calgary.
Nice, man.
Because once I had Renfrew Chrysler paid off, you can use the leverage to buy other businesses. So it trickled the right way.
That's great, man. Well, congratulations. What year did you buy Renfrew? How long ago was that?
2008. So it'd be 16 years in September. I think, the youngest principal owner, one of the youngest owners in North America of a Chrysler dealership that wasn't family owned or a big group owned dealership. I was 34 when I bought it.
So let me ask a question because it's funny when you just said what you just said. Most people would be like, 2008, that was like the height of the great financial crisis. And so that was what half of my brain said. And then the other half of my brain was like, yeah, but they're having an oil boom in Calgary back then. So
You
it
know,
was like, so I nailed that, right?
you did. You bang on. Absolutely. You did a little research for that one. Good on you, Darius.
So this is, I'm going to tell you a funny story. So I did this program. Are you involved in an entrepreneurs organization, by the way?
I am not. No.
Oh, you should check it out. They have a good chapter in Calgary. So EO is the name of the organization. You might really love it. So I know a bunch of guys from EO in Calgary, and I was in this 3-year program at MIT from '06 to '08, and
Yeah.
I was a subprime mortgage lender in '08, which
Okay.
anyone that knows American residential lending will know that, like, basically I caused the entire great financial crisis. So my industry, like, was the cause of it. I did not, but my industry was the cause of it. So in '08, I was getting literally my teeth kicked in. Like, I'd lost 90% of my business. I was like 1 inch away from like going out of business. Eventually I did go out of business about a year and a half later. But it was like painful. And if you've ever had a business, which I do not wish this upon you or any of our listeners, if you ever have a business where you lose 90% of your sales in 6 weeks and stay that small, that's a bad business. That's a shitty business. You learn a lot. You learn a lot, mostly about how to like manage cash flow so you don't blow up, and how to and you learn how to like rebuild. I went to the year 3 of this program, and we had a bunch of guys from Calgary there. And I remember all my Canadian buddies. First of all, the loonie, which is the Canadian dollar, right, was basically at parity with the US dollar, and they were like pumped. They were like, first of all, they were talking shit, and secondly, they're pumped, and and then thirdly, all the dudes in Calgary were just crushing. They were crushing it because they were talking about McDonald's work. You couldn't even hire McDonald's workers there because like the McDonald's were making like $20 an hour. Then this is 16 years ago. And so I just remember that Calgary had this, I didn't know, I'm an American, I'm a California guy. I had no idea that Calgary had this huge oil deposit. And so, but I did know that. And so I remember the reason I didn't do any research. The reason I remembered it is because I was jealous. I was like, man, I want a business where I'm having an oil boom instead of this shit I'm going to every day. So I say all that in that, did that aid in your ability to buy the dealership? Was that part of it? Was a good economy, or like, tell me a little bit about that.
It was, the oil was booming, but on the same token, in '09, the automotive industry really suffered as the housing, as you stated. So, the manufacturers were on risk of going bankrupt. Chrysler Corporation was really struggling. So it was difficult, but, a few things with that said. I ran a dealership that was management driven, not market driven. So I had a really good year in '08 and '09. Even with that, the oil did help out, I think. But as they say, rough waters create a good sailor. So it was a little tougher with the, everyone's saying, oh, Chrysler's going to be bankrupt. It was trouble getting cars from the factory. But I was ready for it because I had lots of inventory. And to reiterate, I had a really good 2008, 2009. But
that's amazing, man.
Management-driven dealership, not market-driven.
When you say management-driven dealership, a lot of our listeners they're not in the auto business, but they're CEOs, entrepreneurs. So what I heard you say is that really it's you guys were dictating your success, and in my understanding of the auto world is, and I have a really good friend he's in South Dakota. He grew up in auto, and now he's in lending. He does really, really well. And he's a guy that I actually mentor. And it is a sales culture, man. I mean, it's all about sales. And obviously now you have a lot of there's some intermediaries getting like, and I'd love to hear how this is affecting your business, but you have cars.com, and you have all these like online sites, and you have, these different, auto dealerships that are essentially the virtual dealerships. You even have Tesla that doesn't even have dealerships. So my question for you is, was it that you guys had a super strong sales culture that did it? What was it when you say management driven? What do you mean by that?
Management driven, being very hands-on, training the sales staff very well, getting involved with customers, marketing a different way, jumping ahead of things. Like we were, doing social media marketing, before it was really getting into the market. And, it's the social media is just a huge part of it. So it's management driven that, they're doing all this. They're running by systems, tracking information, training, and they're not relying on people knocking down the doors. We're working through our database of customers we already have, that they have had a vehicle they bought 3 years ago from us, and we're following up with them marketing. At Renfrew Chrysler, I have a database of 14,000 people. So that's just such a captive audience. And it doesn't cost a lot to market the people you already have. It costs you probably 5 times more to go find a new customer. So management driven, you're working your own database, your own customers.
Yeah, that's interesting. So just it's about like blocking, tackling, running the business the right way, having a great sales organization, running the best practices around that. To your point, not just waiting for the market to dictate it. Like during COVID, there was a lot of market dictating it, right? Shortage of cars, people rushing to buy stuff with COVID money. I don't know if that happened in Canada. It sure as hell happened here. But yeah, I think it's important because you can only control what you can. So it's good on you. And so you bought the one dealership and then started leveraging that to buy the next group. You mentioned earlier that you went to University of Montana, and that you studied business. You didn't mention that you played hockey there. So it sounds like you're a competitive guy, an athlete. Like, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in sports by nature are competitive. And, I did play hockey there. It was more of a club team, but it was decent hockey. And I played some good teams in Calgary, and it worked out well in Montana. And I, met some really nice people there. It was a good school. And it's ironic, both my parents graduated from University of Montana, as well as my older brother. So all 4 of us went to University of Montana. Fantastic business school.
Nice.
Really, great business school.
And do you have kids now or no?
I don't, no.
Okay, I didn't. I always ask. And so, are you?
Let me rephrase that. I don't have kids, but I think I have about 80 kids that work at Renfrew Chrysler.
Nice.
If you know what I mean. I'm mentoring a lot of people. Yeah, I'm mentoring a lot of people. And that's my favorite part. I just love mentoring people. And I find people with a passion and love working with them.
I love that, man. So, I'd love to talk a little bit about the book. So you obviously built up a strong, business. You got 4 different dealerships you own right now. But last year you wrote the book Crank It, a playbook for succeeding in business and life. Tell us a little bit about that.
Darius, where I came up with the idea of writing the book is, for so many years I've been mentoring a lot of young people, and in turn I've been mentored by some fantastic people in my career as well. Fantastic. So, I was mentoring a lot of young people, and I thought, I should write a book so it gets out to more people. Everyone has the ability to be successful doing the right things, taking the right steps. So I started writing it last year, put it all together, and then had Scribe Media help me publish it, and now it's in chapters in Indigo, Barnes and Noble. You can buy it on Amazon. But the book we're just telling the story of my childhood, my parents' mentorship. My mother was a social worker, which helped me as well. My father, a businessman. So it was a really good hybrid combination of both aspects. So that's kind of a book I just started. I put a binder together with 10 different tabs, came up with 10 different chapters type of thing. And anytime something came across my desk or in life about one of those chapters, I'd put it in the binder, and the binder started getting more information in it. And then I started to write, and it just kind of flowed along really well. And I made it a fairly quick read, and I think it's to the point type of read, not excess things. I think just directly to the point on certain things that have worked very well for me, and in turn have worked very well for other people in my life that I've been mentoring.
I love that, man. Yeah, I wrote a book called The Core Value Equation with Scribe. I did guided author. I don't know if you did. Did you guided author? Did you use they'll pair you off with someone that'll work with you. They called it like a Scribe guide.
I did have someone, yes, little
Nice.
later on, but I had most of it written in advance.
Oh,
But
nice.
she did a great job by helping things flow, adjust a few things. So, but I had most of it pretty much completed.
Very cool. So what did you think about the process of writing the book? How'd you like that?
I enjoyed it, but at times you can, as you would know, writing your book, you can get frustrated and you can get some blocks, and it's like you don't want to rush it. I found the best time I would be writing was on Sundays because I always work 6 days a week. Sundays I'm off. So I would just not pressure myself. I would just kind of chip away it on Sundays, not try to rush it and think through it. But I actually enjoyed the process. If someone asked me if I would write another one, I probably will.
I love that.
So,
That's great.
yeah.
So who do you, when you start thinking about like, a playbook for succeeding in business and life, like who's an ideal like reader for the book? Who are people that you think that this book is really written? Who's the audience?
I think a lot of the audience, maybe 16 to 30, I think is a good audience to target. But on the same token, someone can pick up the book at 50 years old and still gain some knowledge from it. So I tried to make it a wide range, but I think it does hit fairly hard at 16 to 30. Someone maybe third year university would be a very good read. Someone that just graduated from university, someone who's graduated from high school. But in the book, it does read that I've never stopped learning. Like I still take social media courses. I'm certainly the oldest in the class, but the book does read, never stop learning. So someone at 50 can pick this up and it'll, say, hey, keep learning. If you want to touch up on your writing skills, go take a course. So I did want to make that point that any age can pick up the book and have a read, because I think it's very important. I love reading books. I love learning things. It keeps me young. And so I think it's an important factor in my success, and I continue to want to be successful, is more learning is a key, I think, for a lot of people. Don't ever think you know everything. Keep learning.
Yeah, I love that. Like be a knower, learner, not a knower. What
Yep.
On the title "Crank It"? Where would that come from? What does that mean?
I kind of came up just like I like to crank it in life. Like when I bought Renfrew Chrysler, I wanted to crank it, double the sales volume, increase sales in service by 20%. So it's one of the term I've used for years. When I got promoted with Chrysler Corporation, I got transferred to Vancouver, BC. I went out there to crank it. That's just kind of a word I use. I like to crank it in life.
I love that. So
I maximize everything I can.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. So going back to, that idea of, let's say, doubling the size, like when you came in and you're like, okay, I'm going to double this thing. Obviously you knew the business because you you bought it from the owner direct. There's two questions I have on this. Like, first of all, I think you did something that it sounds like maybe we're even downplaying it a little bit with it, but so I want to lean into this. Like you went and bought a business without a bank. You sent in the United States, we might call that a seller carryback. I don't know if you guys have those in Canada, but it's almost like a seller carryback where it's a version of that, right? Where you did it through a rev share, you structured the deal, you got them to sell it to you. Did you have to give them any money down, or was it just basically all?
Yeah, it was a vendor take back is my terminology.
Okay. So in a vendor take back or seller carryback, like as we call it here in the States, it's essentially like what percentage did you have to put as a down payment?
It was about 10%. And I'll be honest with you, Darius, at the time, it was a stretch. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to make sure every single cent was Dave Lamont's money. That down payment was very hard to do, but I didn't want to borrow any family money. I didn't want any investors. I wanted it to Dave Lamont's own money. I think it was very important, so I didn't have any partners. I wanted to earn that 10% down myself, and it was a stretch, but at the time I had my home paid off, so I remortgaged the house to pull money out of the house because I could get 80% against the value of it. So I remortgaged my house and scraped the money together, and I think that was a very good defining moment for me, finding that money and doing it all myself.
And so when you did that, did you use like a broker? Did you guys just come up with a structure yourself? How did you guys figure that out?
You know, Mike Tarp and I, the seller and I, figured out the deal ourselves. It was kind of done on a bar napkin, to be honest with you, at a local pub where the best deals are made. And
Sure.
we started just chatting and putting it together. And once we kind of did a 1-page LOI, letter of intent, and put it together from there. And then we didn't use a broker or anyone. And then he got his lawyer involved. I got my lawyer involved and pieced it all together.
How did he feel about it when it was all said and done?
He was really happy because the way the deal was set up, for 2 full years, every cent Renfrew Chrysler made, and they were big years, he got that benefit of it. And originally the deal was set back to have him paid back in 10 years, and I had him paid back in 5.5 years. So that made him happy as well. It was a win-win deal. That was the nice thing. It was 2 friends that made a deal. Mikey and I were really good buddies.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I always, think like the best deals are always win-win. What do you think was win-win about it most? So you were able to get he was able to get paid what he wanted. You were able to get what you wanted. And at the end of the day, it happened faster than both of you expected. What was that? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think the win-win on both sides is I paid him a lot of money for it. Definitely I could almost say overpaid, but I didn't mind overpaying because he was carrying the paper for me. So I overpaid. So he was happy with the amount he got for the dealership. I was happy to be able to own a dealership because it's very, very hard to put that together. So he was happy with what he got. I was happy to be able to own a dealership, and he was happy I paid him off so quickly. And I paid him a fair interest rate as well. So he made some nice interest on the deal. So he was happy with the interest rate at 5%. So it was both sides. Really, we were both very happy.
And what's the? Oh, sorry. Please go ahead. Finish.
Go ahead, Darius.
No. You finish your thought, and then I have a question for you.
I was speaking about interest rate. You
were just saying that he got a good interest rate. He got the money he wanted, and then sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's good. Perfect.
No worries. All right, cool. Yeah. So one of the questions I had was like, having now, you bought this dealership, I'm sure there was a ton of lessons learned along the way, but I'd love to know, like, what was the number one thing you wish you had known going into it that was like a surprise to you once you actually owned the thing, that you're like, oh shit, I didn't know that. Like, what was like the one thing where you're like, whoa, like that was a big learning thing that you might have missed?
I think, learning more on the banking side, with dealing with the banks and, inventory of $30 million, some of those things, some eye openers happened, that I had an idea, but didn't. Payroll at the time was $600,000 a month. When you get to, the amount of expenses you have, big numbers flying around. So that was a bit of a wow factor for me. Just seeing some of the dollar amounts, like Renfrew Chrysler last year did 170 million in sales. So there's a lot of moving parts,
So between the Renfrew, Nissan, Royalty, the Dodge, like what's can you give us the number? What's the revenue between all 4 of those dealerships?
Between everything now with Crowfoot Dodge, it'll be over 300 million.
Wow. That's huge, man. How many employees do you guys have?
It'd be 220.
Yeah, that's solid. And so you prior to that, before so that's really interesting. So prior to that, let's just talk like when you were just coming up through corporate, running the business of Renfrew because you ran it before you were owner of it. What was the most number of people you had ever been under your management?
Before I owned Renfrew, as a younger person, as a general sales manager, 20 people under me, maybe.
Wow.
I weighed around 20. So yeah. And but there's managers of each department as well. So I have, there's a few layers too, but, it becomes a big numbers fast.
Well, yeah, no, obviously in order to have 220 people, you have to have a strong management group or else you can't get to 220 people. My question actually was more of like, what was it like for you to go from only having to, obviously it didn't happen like overnight. Took time to get to that. What's like been one of your biggest learnings of growing as a leader to being someone that managed 20 people to now having 4 businesses, 300 million in revenue, and over 200 people under your watch, essentially? What's been your biggest learning?
I think the biggest thing is to adapt to. Everyone has a different style, a different management style, a different way to be motivated. So a big thing was learning how to deal with different personality types. When you get a bigger group of people, I manage differently to certain people. And I think that was something I've learned, and I'm still learning how to manage and motivate people.
I love that. And so right now, like when you think back over the last, what we're talking about 16 years, have you had any like real scary moments? One where you're like, whoa, like this is like not what I thought I signed up for?
Darius, nothing really jumps out at me, just to be candid. Nothing really does. I roll with things. I shoot and clean up later. So
okay.
Nothing phases me all that much. How do I sleep at night? On a soft pillow.
Oh, I love it. Man, I've had some crazy scary moments. I sleep pretty well too. Good for you. I hope you never have a bad night's sleep because of your business. So that's important. Well, look, I'd love, here at the Greatness Machine, we love to ask the greatness question, and I'd love it if you could educate our audience on our greatness question. You want me to go there right now, or should we maybe before we go there, maybe people that want to connect with you or get the book? I'd love if you can give them the places where they can get the book, where they can connect with you, learn more about the things you're working on, and then we'll go to the greatness question right after that.
Perfect. You can buy it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Chapters in Indigo. So you can get it there, and that's Amazon is a quick way to do it, to deliver it right to you, or at a bookstore.
Awesome. So we'll make sure that we put some links in the show notes. So Dave, you ready for the greatness question?
Fire away.
Let's do it. So what is the number one barrier to creating greatness that you've overcome in your life, and how did you overcome it?
That one I can say is in grade 4. I struggled in grade 4. School was fairly difficult for me. My mother was trying to figure it out. And this was before they were really well known. She did some research, and she found out I had a learning disability. And in the mid 80s, it wasn't a well-known thing. So she got me into a private school, Calgary Academy, that directly worked with learning disabilities. So in grade 5 and 6, that was the hardest thing to come over, was a learning disability, because you learn a different style. You learn visually, not auditorily. And I thank my mother for that. She got it corrected. And that was probably the biggest hurdle to get over, was that learning disability. Because if I didn't, I don't know where I would have went through in school. So that was probably the biggest hurdle I had.
Love that, man. Well, Dave, I appreciate you so much from here at the Greatness Machine. You keep killing it. I love the fact that you've built yourself from really just a startup entrepreneur into a multi-$100-million business, and the book Crank It is definitely something we should make sure that people have on their list. So guys, go out there, support the book. We'll put it in the list in the show notes. It's Crank It, a playbook for succeeding in business and life. And Dave, thank you so much for being on the show. So much gratitude from here at the Greatness Machine.
Darius, thank you. And I want to say you're a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you. Guys, Go out, buy the book. Until next time, peace out. We love you. You are listening to The Greatness Machine, and that's a wrap for today. Listen, if you love what you heard, subscribe to the show on whatever podcast platform that you're tuning in on, so that you don't miss any of our future episodes. We have tons of great people coming on, and we're stoked to have you here to enjoy it with us. Leave us a review. Tell us what you love most about this particular episode. We love getting the reviews. We love to see what you guys love most. And if this particular episode, made you think of someone who's leveling up in their business and in their life, print screen, share it with them. Leaders are the best givers, and after all, we're all here to support and grow with each other. And in case you want to see some of the fun behind the scenes shots or some of the things that we're doing, I'm actually writing about this in my weekly newsletter. Go to www.therealdarius.com and subscribe to my newsletter. We're talking about fun things like business and life and mindfulness and cryptocurrencies and gosh, I don't even know, everything and anything, but it's tons of fun stuff I write about. I try to get it out on a weekly basis. You can subscribe at www.therealdarius.com. And with that said, look, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I love you. Peace. We're out of here. See you guys on the next one.
She's my lover.